It was 4:46 in the afternoon on a sweltering Saturday in late May. I remember because I glanced at my watch right after adjusting my tie for the 100th time, just before the ceremony music kicked in. The outdoor patio was buzzing. White folding chairs lined in perfect rows, hydrangeas puffing in the breeze, guests in light linen suits and floral dresses trying not to sweat through their smiles. I should have been thinking about her, about Kara walking toward me, about forever. But my mind kept stuttering on something else entirely. Ethan. My best man spot was empty. And Ethan? Ethan was the ghost that borrowed $7,000 from me 18 months ago and vanished like smoke. The last time I saw Ethan, really saw him, was inside a Dunkin' on Oak Ridge, the one with the cracked faux leather booths and the always too loud drive-through speaker. He was hunched over a styrofoam cup, swirling it, not drinking. Man, I swear, it's just temporary. I got this gig lined up in Philly, 2 months tops. I'll Venmo you back with interest. I laughed. You don't need to sell me, Ethan. You're my guy. That was $7,000 ago. Ethan and I go way back. 3rd grade, Mrs. Carver's class. He was the kid with light-up sneakers and a weird obsession with dinosaurs. We built a cardboard fort in his mom's garage and called it the HQ. We biked to each other's houses almost daily through middle school, shared our first stolen beer behind the bleachers. In high school, when my mom left my dad, I crashed on his floor for 3 nights, no questions asked, but sometime after 28, things shifted. He started drifting, lost jobs, moved around, said he was freelancing, but couldn't explain for what. I didn't pry. Maybe I should have. The music started. Vivaldi. Spring. Kara's favorite. Guests turned. A couple people pulled out phones. I tried to breathe through my nose. Not for nerves. Those were gone. I just kept thinking, what kind of man bails on his best friend's wedding after taking that kind of money? Because that's what he did. RSVP'd. Said he'd booked a flight from Denver. Even texted me a picture of a suit. That was 2 weeks ago. No arrival, no follow-up. I stopped texting 3 days ago. You look like you're gonna throw up, my cousin Derek whispered. He was standing in as best man now, a last-minute substitute with a slightly crooked tie and zero speech prepared. I'm good, I lied. But I wasn't. Because every time I closed my eyes to soak in the moment, the music, Kara's slow steps, the sun hitting the edge of her veil, I saw Ethan. Not the Ethan of now, but the one who used to save me a seat in the cafeteria, who punched a kid in the mouth for teasing me about my lisp, who once drove 4 hours just to help me move a busted futon. I missed him, and I hated that I missed him. The ceremony went fine. Beautiful, even. Kara looked like something out of a dream, floating more than walking. Her hand was steady in mine. We said the words, kissed under the ivy-draped arch, and everyone clapped like we'd done something monumental. Maybe we had. Photos came next. Then cocktails. I did the rounds, thanked everyone, posed for endless selfies, made small talk about the weather and traffic and the shrimp skewers. But Ethan's absence was a shadow stitched to the back of my mind. It wasn't until we were seated for dinner that it happened. I was mid-bite, some overcooked chicken breast, perfectly forgettable, when Kara's maid of honor leaned over and said, "Hey, isn't that your friend?" She pointed toward the edge of the tent. And there he was, Ethan, hair longer, beard messier, a slightly wrinkled navy jacket, no tie. He stood by the catering tent like he wasn't sure he belonged, like a guy who'd accidentally walked into the wrong party. He saw me before I could react, raised a hand in a slow wave. I blinked. My throat dried up. The fork clattered on the plate. He smiled, like nothing happened. The chime of silverware on glass broke the silence before the first toast. But I didn't hear it right. All I could hear was the static in my head, like the inside of a shell pressed too close to the ear. That sound always meant one thing for me. Something was about to break, and I wouldn't be able to stop it. Ethan was still standing there, and I was still frozen. It had been long enough that some people didn't recognize him. My college buddies, guys like Matt and Jorge, they barely knew his name. Kara, though, she turned to look the moment she saw my eyes shift. "Who is that?" she asked under her breath. I didn't answer right away. I just stood up, left my napkin in the chair, walked toward the edge of the tent like my legs belonged to someone else. Ethan didn't move. He just watched me, hands tucked into his pockets, a crooked little smirk hanging on his face like he knew he was about to get away with something. I stopped a few feet short of him. He opened his mouth, but I spoke first. 7,000, and silence, for over a year. "I know," he said, "I know." "That's all you've got?" He took a step closer. "I wanted to—" "No, don't say it," I cut in. "Don't say you wanted to come clean. You showed up here, today, at my wedding. That's not clean. That's theater." He looked down at the gravel underfoot, shifted his weight. "I didn't plan it like this." "Like hell you didn't." We stood there for what felt like hours. The sounds of clinking glasses and laughter bled into the edges, like we were behind a window watching a happier version of my life. "Kara's here, Pum," I said, finally. He nodded. I saw. "You didn't think maybe don't come to the wedding of the guy you ghosted?" Ethan shrugged. "I thought if I saw you, if I explained, maybe it could start to make sense again." "Start to make sense?" He looked up. "I miss you, man." That did something to me. I wanted to hit him, or hug him, or both, or neither. Instead, I said nothing. I just turned and walked back toward the tent. He followed. Kara intercepted me halfway back. Her eyes scanned my face, then glanced behind me to Ethan, who lingered a few paces behind. "Is that who I think it is?" she asked. "Yeah." "Do you want me to—" "No," I said. "Let's just get through tonight." She nodded slowly. Her eyes were wary but steady. I leaned in close. "I'll explain later." She squeezed my hand. "You better." During dinner, Ethan stayed on the outskirts. He didn't sit, didn't eat. Eventually, he found a spot near the open bar where he could blend in, mostly. A few people greeted him out of politeness, assuming he was some distant cousin or awkward coworker. No one knew the whole story. No one but me. The first dance happened. Then the toasts. Derek got up, stammered through something heartfelt and off the cuff about love and brotherhood. I appreciated it more than I let on. Kara's maid of honor followed. Her speech was longer, funny, sweet. People laughed and dabbed their eyes. I watched Kara glow under the string lights, her eyes never leaving mine. And then, as the applause died down, a voice came from the edge of the crowd. "If it's all right, I'd like to say something." Heads turned. My stomach dropped. Ethan stepped forward. "No," I said aloud, too late. He already had the mic. "Hi, I'm Ethan," he said, voice a little shaky. "Some of you probably don't know me, but I used to be this guy's best friend." The air changed. People looked between us. Kara froze. "I messed up," Ethan said. "Badly. I hurt him. I hurt our friendship. And I don't expect to be forgiven. Not here, not now." I stood, walked slowly toward him. He kept going. "But I didn't come here for closure or attention. I came because I needed to see what I lost, and because I needed him to know I'm sorry, truly." He handed the mic to the DJ and stepped back. All eyes landed on me. I didn't say a word. Not yet. I just turned, walked out of the tent, and stood under the nearest tree. A breeze hit my face. Cool, clean, honest. Seconds later, I heard footsteps behind me. It was Ethan, again. "You really thought that was a good idea?" I asked, not looking at him. "No," he said. "I thought it was necessary." I let the silence stretch. "Tell me where you went," I finally said. He exhaled. "Vegas, then Flagstaff, then back to Denver, lost my job, got another, lost that too, couch surfed, slept in my car a few weeks. I didn't reach out because I didn't know what to say. I was ashamed." "And now?" I asked. He kicked at the dirt. "Now I'm here, and I still don't know what to say." I studied him. The way his shoulders slumped. The way he couldn't hold my gaze for more than a second. And I thought about all the times he had shown up in the past. The sleepovers. The phone calls at 2 a.m. The way he held me back the night I nearly fought a bouncer over nothing. "I needed you this year," I said, my voice low. "Not just the money. I needed my friend." "I know. I thought you were dead." "I might as well have been," he said quietly. We stood there for a long time, neither of us moving. The wedding carried on behind us, distant now. Eventually I asked, "You got a place to stay?" He shook his head. "Wasn't sure I'd be welcome." "You're not," I said, "but I'm not throwing you out either." He nodded slowly. "I'm not forgiving you tonight, Mount," I added. "Fair. But I'll give you breakfast tomorrow, coffee, and we'll see." He looked up. "You sure?" "No," I should have said, "but it's a start." "Don't make this weird," Kara said the next morning, her tone halfway between sarcasm and warning. I looked up from the eggs I was scrambling and gave her a crooked smile. "Define weird. Inviting the guy who ghosted me for a year to my wedding, or feeding him omelets the next morning?" She sipped her coffee. "Just don't go soft. Not yet." Ethan was still asleep in the guest room. At least, I assumed he was. He hadn't made a sound since I showed him in last night around 11. I gave him a blanket, left a glass of water on the nightstand, and shut the door. It was a lot. For me. For Kara. Our wedding night had been hijacked, in a way I couldn't explain to anyone else but myself. But Kara knew. She always knew. She didn't say much when I came back to the reception after the talk under the tree. She just grabbed my hand and squeezed. We danced, we smiled. We got through the rest of the night with grace. But the minute we got home, the weight of Ethan's presence settled between us like a suitcase packed with old grudges. At 8:34 sharp, the guest room door creaked open. I heard his bare feet shuffle against the hardwood. He stepped into the kitchen slowly, wearing the same clothes from the night before, but his shirt was wrinkled enough now to look like he'd slept under a highway overpass. He sniffed. "Something smells like my childhood." "Eggs," I said. "And passive aggression," Kara added, not looking up from her phone. Ethan chuckled awkwardly. "Fair." He sat down at the far end of the breakfast bar, unsure whether to lean in or stay upright like a guest at a wake. "I made enough for 3, I said, sliding plates across the counter. "Thanks, man." We ate mostly in silence, forks scraping gently, the occasional sip. I stole glances at him. He looked older. Not just physically, spiritually, like life had wrung something out of him I used to recognize. "You working?" I finally asked. "Sort of. Delivering stuff. Part-time. Not stable." "Where are you staying?" "Here and there." "That's not an address." He paused. "Slept in a storage unit 2 nights ago." Kara put her fork down. The metal clink was sharper than it should have been. The rest of the morning moved in weird, muted rhythms. Kara went upstairs to call her mom. I threw on some jeans and told Ethan we'd walk a bit. There's a small park 3 blocks from our townhouse. Mostly young parents and old dogs. A winding path around a duck pond and 2 sad benches near the fountain. We sat on one. I didn't say anything for 5 minutes. He didn't either. Then I asked the thing that had been festering since the night before. "Why me?" He squinted. "What do you mean?" "You borrowed from me. lied to me, ghosted me. You could have done that to anyone. But you did it to me. Why? He leaned forward, rested his elbows on his knees. Because you were the only one left who still believed in me. That hit harder than I expected. You weren't just a friend, he continued. You were like my tether. Every time I screwed up, you still gave me a clean slate. I got used to it. I counted on it. And when I couldn't look you in the eye anymore, I disappeared instead. That's not a reason, I said. That's an excuse. He nodded. Yeah, it is. We sat there a while longer. A kid tossed bread to the ducks. An elderly man shuffled past with a cane that squeaked with every step. Do you want the money back? Ethan asked. I laughed, short and bitter. Of course I want it back, but I don't think you have it. I don't, he admitted, but I want to make it right. How? I don't know, not yet, but I'm willing to earn it. He told me more than I expected. About the ex-girlfriend who cleared out his bank account while he was working an overnight. About the DUI that cost him his car and his last good job. About the way he used to stare at my Instagram stories and think he got everything right and I'm just a punchline now. I hated you for a minute, he said, because you were happy and I wasn't. I didn't say anything because part of me, if I was honest, had hated him too, for disappearing, for making me question if loyalty was ever mutual. We walked home in silence. When we reached the front door, I turned to him. I'm not ready to be your friend again, I said. I understand. But if you want to help around the house while you're here, you can stay a few nights. Help me clean up post-wedding stuff. He smiled, but it wasn't smug. It was tired. I'd appreciate that. Kara wasn't thrilled, but she didn't fight it. She made me promise it was temporary. I said it was, and I meant it at the time. The days that followed were strange. Ethan stayed in the guest room, cleaned up the backyard, helped return rental, chairs, took out the trash. He was useful, polite, and never overstepped. He even offered to cook. One night, I caught Kara talking to him on the porch. Her arms were crossed, but she was nodding, listening. They weren't bonding exactly, but they were acknowledging each other. I stayed inside. Let them talk. A week passed, then two. One morning, I caught myself laughing at a joke he made while we were cleaning out the garage. It scared me. I realized I was letting him back in. Not as fully, not yet. But the door wasn't locked anymore, and that terrified me more than anything. The broom handle felt warm from the sun when I passed it to Ethan. We were halfway through clearing out the garage, dust swirling in shafts of light through the cracked side window. Every time I handed him something, tools, rags, old paint cans, I noticed how he handled them gently, almost reverently, like they were someone else's memories. Maybe that's what they were. Because this wasn't just a garage. It was the last place I'd stored trust in him. And it was still cluttered. We were in week 3 of what was supposed to be a few nights of him staying over. Kara hadn't said anything outright, but I could see it in the way she set one fewer coffee mug out each morning, the way she paused every time his name came up in a sentence. Her silence had started speaking louder than any confrontation ever could. Can you hand me that tub? Ethan asked, pointing to a bin marked XMAS lights. I did. Inside, buried under tangled cords and broken ornaments, was a faded blue tin. He opened it slowly. Inside were a few old photos, some screws, and a folded-up sheet of notebook paper. He froze. What is it? I asked. He passed it to me. It was a letter, dated December 12, 2017, my handwriting. I recognized it immediately. To Ethan, if you ever forget what you mean to me. I'd written it after we'd both gone through breakups around the same time. I remembered staying up late, pouring out all the ways his friendship had pulled me back from the brink that winter. I scanned it. It was raw, embarrassing even, but it was honest. Ethan just stood there, rubbing the back of his neck. I didn't know you kept it, I said. Didn't know I'd need it, he replied. We didn't say much after that. Finished sweeping. Stacked a few boxes. But something had shifted. That night, while Kara was brushing her teeth, she looked at me through the mirror. When's he leaving? I don't know, I said. Soon, I think. Think or hope? I didn't answer. She turned off the faucet. He's not a bad guy, but this isn't a rehab center. You're not a project manager for broken people. That stung more than I let on. She wasn't wrong. The next morning, Ethan wasn't in the guest room. The bed was made. His bag was gone. At first, I thought he'd left for a walk, but then I found the note on the kitchen counter, scrawled on a sticky pad from the fridge. Didn't want to stretch your kindness any thinner. Thank you for everything. I'll figure the rest out. E. Under it was a small wad of cash, maybe a couple $100, nowhere near the 7,000, but it felt like the first real payment. I found him that afternoon, took a chance, and checked the park bench we'd sat on weeks ago. He was there. Hoodie pulled tight, a half-eaten sandwich beside him. You leave without saying goodbye now? I asked. He didn't look up. Thought it'd be easier. For who? He shrugged. I can't keep fixing you, I said, sitting down. I'm not asking you to. You kind of are, just by showing up. I know. We sat in silence again. I hated how familiar that rhythm had become. Finally, he turned to me. Do you remember the summer after high school, when my dad bailed and we didn't have groceries? Yeah. You bought me cereal with your paycheck. Captain Crunch, I said, because you said it made your milk taste like candy. He smiled. That's when I knew, he said. If anyone ever truly had my back, it was you. I sighed. You keep saying stuff like that, but you're always the one disappearing. I don't want to disappear anymore. That night, Kara and I sat on the couch, legs tangled under a blanket, a rerun humming softly on the TV. I told him he could stay one more week, I said without looking at her. She was quiet. Then, you're hoping he becomes the version of himself you remember. I'm hoping he becomes the version he wants to be. Do you still trust him? I didn't answer for a long time. I'm trying. She nodded. That was all she needed. On day 6 of Ethan's final week, I came home to find him hunched over his laptop at the dining table. What you doing? I asked. Job apps. A friend from Colorado said his company's hiring for remote logistics support. Pays decent. I nodded. Need a reference? He looked up. Would you? I thought about it. Really thought. Yeah, I said. I would. We stayed up that night watching an old UFC fight we'd seen a dozen times in college. Ethan knew every punch before it landed. Still winced like it was the first time. At one point, I turned to him. You ever think about what we'd be like if things had gone differently? He didn't hesitate. We'd probably still be living like idiots in that crappy 2-bedroom apartment trying to invent the next Airbnb. We laughed, but my chest hurt a little. Because I missed that version of us. The one before money and silence and disappointment. The one where the worst thing we ever fought over was who ate the last Hot Pocket. The next day, he got the job. Remote. Starts Monday. First paycheck in 2 weeks. He walked into the house, held up his phone, like a kid who just won the lottery. Looks like I'm employed again. Kara clapped. It wasn't sarcastic. It wasn't enthusiastic either. But it was real, and that was enough. The key I gave him wasn't on a fancy ring, just a single, worn-down copy of the house key taped to an index card. It sat on the kitchen counter like a question neither of us wanted to ask out loud. I hadn't told him to give it back. But on his last morning in the guest room, he did. He left it by the coffee pot, and next to it was a folded receipt. I stared at it. It was from the hardware store down the street, $347.91, labeled garage repairs, paint, tools replaced. He didn't knock, didn't ask, just left it there. He wanted to start paying me back, and not with words. I found him in the driveway, loading up an old duffel into a beat-up Honda Civic that barely looked roadworthy. "Where you headed?" I asked. He stood up, wiped his palms on his jeans. "Short-term rental in Midtown. Not much, but it's month to month." "You sure you want to go now?" He nodded. "Yeah, I need to. For me, for you, for Kara." I didn't ask if he'd talked to her. I figured he had. She'd been better since the job news, since the effort. But she was still wary, and I couldn't blame her. "You think this time's different?" I asked. He zipped the bag. "I don't know, but I want it to be." "That's new." He smiled. We stood there, awkward again, like teenagers saying goodbye at a bus station. Then I reached into my pocket and pulled out an envelope. "Open it later," I said. He gave me a look. "Dude, it's not cash," I cut in. "Just open it later." He nodded, tucked it into his bag, and then he was gone. The house felt quieter without him, not just in sound, in presence. Kara noticed it too. That first night, she curled in close to me without speaking. Her hand on my chest said more than her words ever could. We'd made it through the weirdest start to a marriage I could imagine, and somehow we were stronger. Not because of Ethan, but because of what we had to wrestle through because of him. A week passed, then another. Then a text came. "Ethan, first paycheck landed. $300 sent to your Venmo. Not much, but it's a start." I stared at it for a long time, then typed back, "You paying interest?" His reply was instant. "You deserve it. Add it to the invoice." Over the months, we rebuilt something. Not the friendship we had at 10 or 20 or even 28, but something else. More grown up, more cautious, more real. He sent money regularly. Small amounts sometimes, bigger when he could. Always with a note. "For that time you covered rent. For the whiskey you didn't ask me to replace. For the flight I said I booked, but didn't." He remembered. That was what mattered most. 6 months later, I found myself standing beside him in a thrift store, helping him pick out a decent blazer for his first in-person job interview in almost 3 years. "I should have worn this to your wedding," he joked. I shrugged. "You showed up. That was enough." "Was it?" I looked at him, thought about all the versions of him I'd carried in my head, the ones that hurt, the ones that helped, and the ones standing in front of me now. "Ask me again in a year," I said. He nodded. "Fair." When we got back to my place, just for a quick stop, he waited outside while I went in to grab something. Kara was reading on the couch. She looked up, saw him through the window, then turned to me. "He's trying." I nodded. "And you?" "I'm learning." She smiled. "Good. Just don't give him a key again." "I won't." And I meant it, because forgiveness didn't mean a free pass. It meant remembering the hurt and still choosing not to close the door. All the way. That night, after Ethan left, I found the envelope I'd given him months earlier sitting in his glove box. He hadn't opened it. I asked him why later. He said, "Because I wasn't ready to read what I thought you might have written." I told him it was just a note. 2 lines. "You hurt me, but I still hope you make it." He never responded to that. But every payment, every call, every late-night text just checking in, those were his replies, one at a time. If this story moved you, subscribe for more real-life confessions and emotional journeys like this one.